Good morning, metalheads of the internet. Welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown, and today we're looking at the latest album from Katatonia entitled City Burial. This is the 11th studio album from the Swedish rock and metal crew Katatonia, who over the course of their nearly 30-year career have consistently released incredibly melancholic, emotionally complex, and lavishly produced material, while also exploring tons and tons of different shades of heavy metal and progressive music. They've played around with gothic rock, alternative rock, symphonic rock, traditional heavy metal, progressive metal, death metal, doom metal. More specifically, over the years, citing direct influence from a wide variety of bands, including The Cure, Fields of Nephilim, Slowdive, Bathory, Paradise Lost, Morbid Angel, Autopsy, Opeth, Porcupine Tree, Tool. And while there are things about the band that have sonically and thematically remained consistent throughout their entire discography, one thing is abundantly clear nonetheless. They are incredibly flexible, very diverse, very open-minded, very progressive, and they are constantly looking for new and exciting ways to communicate their unique vision of darkness. And City Burials is predictably, but not regrettably, very much the same. It's fresh, but not funky. It's similar, but not quite the same. It is aesthetically and structurally through and through another Katatonia record. With that in mind, an argument could be made by some almost immediately that your opinion on this record may depend on your pre-existing opinion of Katatonia, but I think a more fitting description would be that your opinion on this record may depend on your pre-existing opinion of this particular phase of Katatonia. For example, if you're looking at this band the same way some people might look at Anathema or Opeth, and you're sitting here going, where's the death metal, where's the extreme metal, I don't want prog, I want a blast of brutality, then you're probably going to be pretty disappointed with this. As this record musically picks up in a lot of the places where Fall of Ideals left off, expanding on some of the more classic progressive rock song structures and ideas, and implementing some more outside genres to spice things up. Like on opening track Heart Set to Divide, opening on a very melancholic, kind of blackened progressive rock gallop, hearkening to some weird fusion of modern Enslaved and Genesis. Or on a track like Vanishers, which expands on the more modern new prog style of Anathema with a lot of symphonic flourishes and even some little tiny dashes of this jazz fusion influence. But where this album really flexes its experimental muscles and where it may lose a good chunk of people is in Katatonia's new interest in electronic music. To be fair, electronic music isn't necessarily foreign to Katatonia, but it also hasn't been embraced on previous records the way it's being embraced on City Burials. As it not only helps to continue to showcase just how flexible Katatonia are, but at times the electronic influence showcases Katatonia at a very rare, sensual, and even accessible point in their career. For instance, a track like Winter of Our Passing from a distance may look like your typical Katatonia goth rock ballad, but upon closer inspection you'll notice that it's actually built on a series of surprisingly catchy dance pop beats and rhythms with this almost funky synthwave kind of spirit. And the track Liqueur takes this electronic, almost pop rock sensibility to the next possible extreme, with a very dramatic, romantic kind of swerve to it, almost hearkening to the alternative R&B of someone like The Weeknd. I won't lie, when the bass kicked in and the song really started moving, I was initially reminded of You've Earned It from The Weeknd specifically. I'm certain that these moments will prove to be somewhat divisive amongst musically conservative metalheads, but that being said, as we've already noted, if you know Katatonia, then you should already know this isn't the type of band that's going to make the same type of record over and over again. They're not necessarily interested in making a straight-up, balls-out heavy metal record. Although, side note, I wouldn't object if they actually did go that route, because the track Behind the Blood, which does indulge in some of the band's classic heavy metal influences, is probably one of the most exciting and dynamic moments on the album. A track so goddamn good that it's honestly kind of addicting, marrying Katatonia's emotive drive, fog, and mystery with some epic, ripping, soaring doom metal leads. Let's put it this way, I would not be shocked at all to find out that these guys have been listening to a lot of Chemists as of late, in particular their third studio album, Desolation. Admittedly, there are some tracks that kind of fade into the background on repeat listens, and as such could be dismissed as being more typical, even predictable Katatonia cuts. And while you're not objectively wrong, I don't think the issue is that these songs are filler per se. I think the bigger issue here is the actual arrangement of the album. Some of the musical switches are inherently a little jarring and shocking because of how the album is laid out. For instance, what will likely be the album's most controversial track, Liqueur, is preceded by Behind the Blood, the gothic metal, traditional heavy metal banger. This kind of automatically pushes certain tracks into obscurity as you're not really looking at the entire album anymore, and you're just kind of mesmerized by these incredibly wild and progressive moments. To put it very simply, there isn't necessarily a dip in quality, the album just kind of lacks cohesion and unity, moving at times quite drastically in a weird zigzaggy pattern. But hey, think of it this way, when you go on a road trip, you're never really thinking about the bumps in the road, you're thinking about the sights around you, you're thinking about the destination. And so long as you stay focused on that with City Burials, it remains a very immersive and cathartic listen, even despite its occasional jarring detours. And with all this in mind, I feel more than comfortable giving this a 3.5 out of 5. Will every single decision made on this record resonate with you, even if you are intimately familiar with Katatonia's shape-shifting sound and identity? That's hard to say, especially when it comes to the more electronic, even accessible influences and material found on this record. But the cool thing about City Burials is because there's so much going on, it kind of accidentally becomes an album that has something for everyone. There aren't a lot of modern metal albums out there that act as a kind of genre smorgasbord offering something for everyone, and for that reason alone, I think City Burials is a very interesting record to check out, particularly if you are brand new to the entire metal genre. You know, you're getting the classic heavy metal, you're getting the prog rock, you're getting the goth rock, the alternative metal, you're getting all these lavish soundscapes and these incredible performances from a group of gentlemen who are continuing to impress and diversify well beyond a point where I think most people would have expected them to stop and settle into some kind of rut, making the same type of album over and over and over again, like AC/DC or Motorhead. But to paraphrase Jonas in this older interview from Invisible Oranges, we already have AC/DC and Motorhead. We already have bands that are expected to make the same type of album over and over again. Katatonia just isn't one of those bands. Again, there are many things that are similar from album to album, but at the end of the day, Katatonia is going to keep experimenting, going to keep expanding, and going to keep looking to outside influences. And honestly, even if I find myself disenchanted by the band's next album or phase or whatever you want to call it, I'm still going to want them to make records that way. Because that is who Katatonia are, and that is why City Burials is such a damn good record. 3.5 out of 5, definitely check it out. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? Thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately, and you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.